Hello there, you beautiful soul, and welcome back to another segment of Culture Talks. I am Rebecca Munoz, your host of Cultured Society. The whole purpose of these conversations is just to bring in a collective, a panel of people that either I have met throughout my years of journeying through life, or people that are just making an impact and making waves on this planet. We have been through so much, especially over the last year, so many changes that really disrupted our lives. So many unexpected changes that oftentimes, we that are happening naturally around us. And oftentimes we don't allow these changes that are happening around us to really allow us to sit back and self-reflect and assess where we are currently to make the changes that we need to make internally to experience transformation and change in every aspect of our lives. So these special guests that I'm bringing on are people that I admire, that inspire me every single day, and that really are making an impact in people's lives and are implementing these changes so that they can be of service to the people of this world that really need it. And so my special guest today is Daisy De La Cruz-Alonzo. Daisy and I met back in 2003. In fact, in 2003, I moved to Chicago, Illinois from Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I currently reside. I came back here last year to be with my family. And as the year progressed in 2020, I started to really think about the people that really have made an impact in my life. And one of the people that came to mind was Daisy. She was the first person that I actually had a conversation with, aside from my admissions counselor. And we lived together for a short period of time. And Daisy, from the start, was just, she was definitely a ball of energy. And a person that I really resonated with in so many areas. And throughout the years of living in Chicago, I went back twice, actually, or for the second time. And throughout my years, she was always a big part. We actually ended up doing some marketing stuff together. And we lived a very free life together. And both of our lives have taken completely different directions, yet we still have so many commonalities in our culture, in the line of work that we do. And so, yeah, here is my special guest. So Daisy is a certified integrative health coach and a licensed financial professional. Together with her husband, Ozzy, they work with families to co-create and achieve financial goals, partnership, and peace of mind. So although I believe that our work is aligned with our purpose, if we, align with our purpose, really the whole purpose of this conversation is really to understand the guest's perspective and view of life. And everybody's life philosophies and belief systems are so different, yet we can come together as a collective and we can understand and come to an agreement that we are all part of one body. So it's really important that we open up our minds, we open up our ears, right? And we embrace the different perspectives and philosophies that different people in this world have and have to offer. So with that, I would love to ask the first question, Daisy. What is your life's philosophy?
Wow. Can I just say thank you? Like, oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Becky. And as you were talking, I was thinking like, man, when we have when we continue to have these conversations in our 60s, what kind of women will we be, right? Like we started so young in this journey and now we're in our mid 30s and we're having different conversations, but we'll continue to evolve then. And I hope I hope your show and your audience and your podcast continue to grow so much so we can like immortalize that in time and go back and look at how much more we've grown, because this is like an ongoing journey, right?
Yeah,
How fun
exactly.
would that be?
Exactly.
Oh goodness. So I was thinking about this question, like my life philosophy, and if I had to boil it down, I would say that life is really about choices. And not making a choice is a choice. To not do something is a choice on its own. So oftentimes we feel like life is dealt to us. And I know I've felt that before, but we still have a choice to accept it, change it, triumph over it, become victim to it, reassess. There's always these little choices that we have that in the long run make a huge difference, can make a huge difference in our lives. So at the very core of it, I would say choice. We all have choices.
Yes, you are so right. And, like you said, oftentimes people think that these cards are dealt to us. And in reality, they kind of are. However, we can choose to go right or left with the cards that are dealt with us, make a decision to look at the higher perspective of the experiences that we go through, learn from
Hmm.
them, and being able to correct moving forward. So you're right. Choice
Hmm.
is definitely something that really impacts our lives on a day, second to second basis, right?
Hmm.
Every second
Yeah.
we have a choice. And how do you think that philosophy has changed over the years? Because I'm sure that, in our 20s, and I know this from personal experience, that I was just making very flighty choices. I wasn't really thinking about the future. I wasn't really thinking about, how this can really impact me. So how do you think that that really has evolved for you?
Yeah, I agree. In my 20s, I was just like living just, whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And I feel like as I got older and the responsibilities started to pile on and um things just don't hit the same anymore, right? I was able to take a step back and see like, okay, I'm in this situation, what can I do? And I'll give you an example that I just talked about on my Instagram. Um Ozzy and I were newly married, and when we were together dating in that dating phase, he would always tell me he wanted a big family. He wanted like 7 children or something crazy. And I actually broke up with him once because I was like, you got the wrong girl. I don't want any kids. I remember I had gone to Africa. I had traveled a lot, and I was like, I have a different mission in my life. This is not, I'm not going to be at home. I was the first to graduate college. I was like, it just that picture you're painting isn't for me. Nevertheless, he came back around and we got married. And then shortly after we were married, I became pregnant, unplanned. And then a few months later, I lost the baby. And I had never been through such a crippling experience in my life, Becky, that I mean, I had been through things before, but not like that. This was like soul shattering. And I I had a choice, right? I had said I never wanted kids. So in a gruesome way, I was off the hook, right? But that feeling that I was left with made me realize I wanted to be a mom more than anything. I was even shocked at my own realization. Even then, I had a choice. Do I continue and now try family planning, or do I shelve this until I could gather myself? Um, and and for anybody out there who's been through a terrible loss, whether it was, a few weeks gestation, months, or stillbirth, right? Because I ended up coaching women in this area later on in life, and you try again, like I think that is just the utmost form of bravery to put yourself out there and just go through that one more time, just in hopes of the outcome you're desiring, right? So I made a choice to go through with the family planning. We both did. It was very difficult. I was terrified of losing my son, who's now 6. But when I became pregnant, I was terrified of going through that again. And I remember very vividly after we heard the heartbeat and we confirmed that he was there. I had a coming to Jesus moment with myself, and I journaled and I said, I was really scared to get my heart broken again, to like have my hopes in another pregnancy that wasn't going to manifest. But I had to face that, and I did it on paper, and I said, I don't care if I never get to meet you. Like I want to love you, and I'm okay. Like I'm okay if whatever the outcome is. It was just like a complete surrender. And that was a choice I'm so glad I took, because I have this beautiful healthy boy now, and had I withheld so much love from him that I gave my first pregnancy, I feel like we would have missed out on this connection that we have now. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Now looking back, like looking back now, it was such a huge leap of faith. And, I wish I could say it was the same for my second pregnancy, because that still kind of haunted me throughout. Um, but that surrender was a huge choice that I took, and I'm glad I did. You know what I mean? So even then, in those moments, it may not seem like a big deal, but it was shifting. It was life shifting for me to decide to enjoy my pregnancy no matter the outcome.
Oh my gosh, Daisy. Well, first of all, my condolences to your loss, because I can't
Thank
even
you.
imagine what it would be like to know that you have a child on the way, something that you bear with the person that you love, and then it's taken away from you. And so many times, and I've actually met a lot of women that have miscarried, and it's a very common thing in our society, because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes the condition of our body is not really ready to bear the entire term of that child. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we go through that loss, or when women go through that loss, and even just like losing other things, right, like losing people in your life, you don't really understand why you're going through that
Mm-hmm.
grieving process. But just like you had mentioned that you have helped women after the fact, it's almost impossible for us to really make an impact in people's lives when we haven't been through that very thing that we're trying to help people with. So it almost makes you a more empathetic and compassionate person, because you understand so deeply what it's like to go through a loss like that.
Mm-hmm. And
So
like
I,
you said, there's so much shame when it comes to that, and it's such a secretive society that we're a part of. Nobody can give you an answer as to why it happened. Doctors don't know. It's just like it happens. And oftentimes it is the woman's body. Oftentimes it's just the fetus and the condition, right? That just couldn't follow through with whatever, you know what I mean? So it's hard to give someone who's grieving an answer that they desperately want one to prevent this from happening ever in the future. And going through that like enormous valley allowed me to hold the space for other women just to sort those thoughts out, because um nobody could ever say to you like it's going to be okay. At least, I mean, they could, but that doesn't mean anything when you're going through that. And the best thing Ozzy could do for me at that time was just hold me when I would just like eating dinner, just like cry until I had no more tears, because my body was still like trying to figure it out in and of itself. So yeah, it's even to opt in to have the choice to face that darkness is could be life shifting for someone. You know what I mean? So
how
yeah.
long after the fact did you wait, or how long was that transition before you ended up getting pregnant again?
Yeah, so they had told me that I should wait about 3 months just for my body to recalibrate. And I went to a doctor that was very like black and white, right? Because this happens often. And, you know, so she was just like, and if it happens again, then we'll just have to see and maybe take it to a specialist. And I'm like, again? Like, how could I ever, like what? But we waited 3 months. Luckily, we became pregnant during that time that we were trying with my oldest. And that was always a fear too. Like, what if we can never? What if there's something wrong with me? What if? And I just remember seeing that strip and falling to my knees and just thanking God. And at that point, I wasn't even like a believer like I am now, but I was just like, okay, we're going to do this again. And yeah, so it was 3 months. I consider myself lucky because some women definitely go through this, Becky, over and over and over and over. And again, just the sheer bravery to face that and try again I have so much respect for women like that.
This is going to be my next question, but I'm going to kind of tie it into what you just said. How has your upbringing and circle of influence impacted the way you live and think about life today, um, including this experience that you had? Because I can't imagine going through a grieving process like that by yourself. And so was the circle of influence that impacted your healing process during that time the same as the influence that you had when you were younger, or has it changed?
That's a good question. I can tell you very honestly that I really didn't lean on anybody. I was in that shame category. I didn't tell anyone. My friends didn't know. My mom knew, my sister, but nobody knew what we were going through at all. It was very private. I didn't think anybody would understand, and I felt I was to blame. I really felt at fault. Um, Honestly, what really helped me through, things just work out. I became part of this writing group with people I still talk to, and we would meet and just like write about stuff, give each other feedback, and really feed into each other. There was like 6 of us, and when it came my turn to present a piece, I took the liberty of writing a goodbye letter to my child, and I presented it to everybody, and it was the most healing process. It was extremely difficult, but it was very healing for me, and and almost in a way to present it to people that really didn't know me was healing in and of itself. There was no bias, there was no other thought. It was just what it was. And that made a huge difference. And you know what? Right after that, the group just kind of dismantled on its own. It like served its purpose for what it was. And I was so grateful to have people like that to hold that space for me, and they didn't even know it. So, kind of coming back full circle, once I became a health coach and looking back now, like the Bible talks about us sharing our struggles with others, to like I imagine it like lifting each other's hands up this ladder, like, hey, I've been here, come here, it's okay. That's why I kind of stepped into the space of working with other women in different capacities, but I opened myself up for that loss and grieving mother from all different types of loss and grief of children, just to be like, I haven't been there, but I want to honor your space and just say what you have to say without feeling judged. Um, so
That
that's
is
how I
so
got here.
That is so beautiful, Daisy, because I think that this is one of the main reasons why I started these conversations is because we live in a very one conflicted society. A lot of times there's so much noise infiltrated by fake news, right? Media outlets that aren't necessarily the real deal. Just influences that are not the best for us, and so bringing these conversations to the forefront by so many different types of people from, their 30s to their 60s that have lived so many different types of experiences, to be able to open up a platform for people to share their story, because not every person is going through the same experience. Everybody's going through we can literally even be in the same exact room looking at the same, for instance, piece of art, and we're not even having the same perception of what we're looking at. And so it is really important to put yourself in platforms, or if you have the courage to create a platform for people, that you can share your story so that it gives them space to be able to share theirs as well. And it's almost like that Me Too movement where it may
Hmm.
not be the exact same experience, but they're like, shoot, I've been through a similar experience and I can really relate. And this is so healing talking about it.
Yeah, it's part of our human condition to connect. Like, it's part of us to feel like we're not alone, and now that we're so isolated, I talk about my miscarriage openly on purpose. It never really goes away. I do have moments. I did, struggle. It wasn't easy just to be like, okay, let's talk about this, but I know it's someone out there, if they went through what I went through, even remotely, could could feel like the warmth from afar. You know what I mean? That there is another side to this. And fill in the blank, Becky. I went through a divorce in my early 20s that I don't wish, it's not fun. It's awful. It's heartbreaking. And I hold the space for people there too. Like, hey, I know what that was like. It's not easy. It's shameful, especially in my family. We grow up, it's like together forever. And I feel like I let so many people down. And it was just, it wasn't a good place to be in, but I learned the lesson. And my lesson might not be the same for everybody, but if we could just offer the space for someone to feel supported, man, that's what it's all about, right? Like, you'll get through this. I'll hold that space for you. Say whatever you want, and then let's try to find a solution together.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. I mean, we're here definitely to guide, to inspire, to create space. And if you have an opened mind, right, and you have the capacity, because we're all world servers, we're all light
Mm,
workers, we're all way showers, we're all here to really, even though, we're not journeying through the same path, we've all been through a journey, right? And it's really just about
mm,
having that conversation and really because I've never been married, but I have been, and you are very familiar with the experience that I had while I was in college. I mean, it was an emotionally abusive, sometimes physically abusive, and I never imagined that I would be in a situation like that. I didn't come from that family dynamic, but sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we never imagined that we would be in. And also to really understand that when people are going through situations that oftentimes, yeah, it's a choice, but it's a lot more complicated sometimes to maneuver or to get out, especially when you're in a toxic relationship. You can often say, well, why don't you just leave? Or, and it's easier said than done, especially when
mhm,
there's a lot of emotion involved in that. And so the fact that you're now doing work right now that can really help women or men overcome these experiences and not live in shame because of it, right? To
mhm.
open the dialogue and to allow people just to talk about these things. And that actually goes into my next question. Do you believe that your line of work infects? I like to use the word infects, but in a positive way. So infects our society with positivity. And if so, how so do you do that?
So I think directly it might not seem like it, but I think on the back end it does. I think this is a really great question. So I mentioned, I've worked with women. From parenting to the loss to, fill in the blank, personalized coaching, right? Over the years, we've really evolved based on my observations and also requests to really work on the family home. And who's at the forefront is that partnership or a single mom. That's so far my two options. I have yet to work with single dads. I'm more than happy to. It's just where the road has taken us. And when when mom is not okay, the house is not okay. When the partnership is not okay, there is trouble afoot. And where we've been led to lately is in talking about finances and how that plays a role in the home. And that's never a fun topic. Nobody's ever like raising their hand ready to air their dirty laundry, right? So I'd say at the front end, it's not positive, but if you get through it and you get that clarity and you become in sync, it turns into something positive, if that makes sense. It turns into it turns into something potentially generationally impacting if you allow it to. Not everyone wants to go there. Not everyone is ready to go there. But people who step into it, I see come out on the other side with more hope, with more, just lightness off their shoulders. And that's the positivity that is like indirectly a result of what we do. So
You said that that initially it's not a positive conversation because oftentimes people don't like to talk about their finances, and that's another topic that is very shameful in our society. I
mm,
know I speak from experience, and I'm even still working through the repercussions of a lot of my decisions from years ago of just being negligent with my finances and not really understanding, because in our society we are not taught financial literacy. Even
no,
you go to college and you go for finance and accounting, and you're not really taught the true
true.
essence of financial literacy. I know I had to learn it, and I'm still learning it, but I learned it through a lot of errors that I made with my finances.
Hmm.
And so I know firsthand what it's like to feel shame, right, for the decisions that I made through, all of my experiences. So what would you say, to people that are feeling a lot of shame and that don't really understand financial literacy and that are still trying to make positive changes in their life to get on the right track?
Yeah, that's also a really good question, Becky. And like you said, there's a lot of tension when you mention finance too. I mean, I have yet to meet someone who's like super comfortable on the topic. There's just something about the energy of currency that makes us nervous. It's not normalized, especially in people that look like you and I. It's just not normalized yet. So I would say, it's not as scary as we think, and ignoring it costs more than facing it.
Mhm.
Ozzy and I work together on purpose just to show like, hey, we've been there, we've made the mistakes, and we are still hopeful that our children will not. That's our choice. Again, we go back to that choice, right? Oftentimes we think we're like generationally cursed, and this could be in our health and our finances, fill in the blank. My dad has been diabetic since I can remember. And when I was old enough to understand what that was, I remember doctors telling me, like, you have to check in the box, like, have your parents, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, well, they bucketed me as also having, uh, or being susceptible or going to get diabetes as well. Like, it's just what you're going to get.
Mhm.
And they tell you this lie and you believe it. Well, your dad had it, so you're going to have it. It's just that's how it works. Until I met a doctor who said, no, it's a choice. You could
Yep.
change that.
Yep.
And I was like, really? I was like taken aback. It was like the first time somebody even gave me that glimmer of hope that it's not in my genes, that it's not, you know what I mean? That you can do something about it if you're aware and you want to do something about it. So I feel it's the same with our finances. Maybe you didn't grow up in the best community. Maybe your parents didn't teach you because they came here like my parents as immigrants, and they just came to work, not to study this financial laws of this country, which who can blame them, right? Like they came here to do what's best for us. So now we have a choice. We have a choice to look at it and face that and say, like, how can I improve my situation, for my future? Pretend you don't have anyone else you're responsible for, but just for you, how do you grow and pass this on to someone else that is also afraid, that's also uh, you know, um, intimidated? I'd say a lot of people are just intimidated by these topics. Investments, what does that mean? I don't know. No one ever explained it to me, or they're guarded, right? Like, oh, everything out there is a scam. They just want my money. Like there's just a lot of energy, that doesn't have to live there, if we're just like open-minded and consider there's an option for us that best fits our needs.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that your dad has been a diabetic or has, struggled with diabetes, and that it really is a part of our culture to believe that these diseases in our body are genetic. But what's
Hmm.
genetic is these generational curses, because every single person's DNA and genetic makeup is individual. So even though we're born from someone, we may carry that gene, but science says that we have the ability to change that. We have the ability to adapt to a different environment and put ourselves in a different trajectory. And I am a living testimony of that, because I went through a major overhaul in my internal health, and I said, no, it's not going to be my story. Even when it came to, my past with finances, past history with my health, past history with toxic relationships, past history with all these things, right, that are made up by our culture, that we have the ability to change
Hmm.
so much. How do you stay relevant, unique, and true to who you are as a person individually?
Individually. So relevant, I feel like is a trap, right? Like if you look on social media or we look at our timeline or, pick the channel, like relevance for you is projected to you differently than it is to me. And I feel like when I'm trying to be in that rat race of like, oh, well, this person's doing this person's doing that, like I get so much stress, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like trying to keep up. So I think for me, what's relevant is just staying in my lane in my home with my husband, and like what do we want to do? What do we want to create? We pulled our son from school this year to do homeschooling, and girl, online, it's like a whole world of like ideas and moms and groups, and just like it's so overwhelming. But to me, a lot of that doesn't make any sense. A lot of it doesn't make sense in our home. So staying relevant to how we want to raise our son takes us coming together and like crafting a plan, crafting our own schedule, crafting our own, like really taking a step back and looking. And I think that's where that quiet space comes in.
Mhm.
I think in this 2020, if we haven't taken time to take advantage of that quiet space and not drown it out with Netflix or Hulu or whatever, we're really missing a huge opportunity to sit with our situation and analyze what could be improved, what could we shed light on, where could we grow a skill, and really become, in a sense, like relevant in our home. Like how do we want our kids to perceive us, right? Like the Joneses or like us, like the Alonzos, you know what I mean? And that's all that matters, because like my mom says, no eres monedita de oro. Like no one's always gonna gravitate to what I have to say or what I have to do, or my husband, you know what I mean? It's like that's okay. As long as I'm true to ourselves and my God, like I don't need anyone's approval. And that's been a hard lesson, Becky. I've been a people pleaser for a long time. I'm recovering. And that's just something that I've come to terms with, that I can't put those expectations on other people to give me the thumbs up, because I'll never fully get that, right? And it's a false fulfillment. So
Girl. Girl. Oh my gosh, no, that is so true. And we live in a social media age where we tend to play the comparison trap.
Mm,
Or the comparison game, and we fall into the comparison trap, because it's a trap. You have no idea what people have to go through to get to where they are. Even the journey of entrepreneurship, like people think, oh, they got it made, they have all this money, yada yada, but you don't realize all the sacrifices that have to be made in order for you to be on that
mhm.
path. And even shutting out the noise, not worrying about what everybody else is doing, because everybody does have a specific DNA code. And when you stay in your lane, you're able to fulfill that. And I definitely
Yeah.
see that with you and Ozzy, because I know that I know firsthand that going on your own personal path, you do experience a lot of opposition and challenges, adversity, a lot of no's, a lot more no's sometimes than yeses.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And you definitely have to stay focused and really in line with what you're supposed to be doing, listening to your own voice, and really just shutting everything else out, no matter what it is.
mm-hmm,
Going back to the circle of influence.
mm-hmm.
So now that you're married, obviously, your family is your priority, but outside of your family, now that you've kind of gone through these different stages, and we're going to continue to rise, we're going to continue to up
Mm-hmm.
level ourselves, right? Because it's a never ending evolution. How do you think that your circle of influence outside of your marriage has changed from even when you were single and didn't have a family?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm going to tie it back to what you said. Sometimes when you go off on your own, it's definitely against the grain. It's against the current. People don't typically understand it, and that's okay. I love everybody, like our circle that we've created over the years in our 20s since we were in grade school. I still have the same friends that I did, and I cherish them deeply. When we're talking about where we want to go in the growth in our space, which for now it's that financial space, we have our own personal group there. But also in our spiritual life, we have a group of people that's completely different,
Mm,
that are a lot more mature and have been through several things. We have a couple in particular that Ozzy has Bible study with the husband. I have Bible study with the wife, and I know her dearly, and she's amazing. And they bring so much wisdom to us. They're in their 50s. They're just amazing. They're God sent. So my circle of influence is diversified based
mm,
on my needs. When I want to decompress, I want to grab a glass of wine. Like, oh, I'll run back to my girls. What are you guys doing? Let's talk. Let's catch up via Zoom. You know what I mean? And then when I want more growth, personal growth, like we hire a coach, and then we get together with other people that are also like-minded and want to grow and are reading the same books, and they're different. I have pockets that serve different purposes in my life. Same thing at church. I have people that we commune with, and are growing their families. They have young families that are in the stages we are, and we talk about the struggles of being a parent during these times. And they feed me as much as I hope I give back to them. So I think, like your financial portfolio, your group of influence should be diversified based on your goals, because it's unfair to expect one or two people to fill all those buckets for
absolutely.
you. You know what I mean? I think it's really unfair for you and them, because we can't be everything to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are so right. And it's really important that, especially if you're a person who is on a trajectory of growth, that you evaluate your friendships, you evaluate your network, right? Because there's the saying that says that your network is equivalent to your net worth. And
Mm-hmm.
and it may not necessarily that you are mean that you have $1 million, or that you're on that trajectory to having that much, but really, at the end of the day, it is the wealth, the mental wealth, right, the spiritual wealth that people pour into you, that is the most valuable. Because when you have those types of assets, you're able to work and build on that asset that is going to allow you to circulate those other assets that are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so, going to my next question, do you believe that the work that you do today is aligned with your calling and higher purpose?
Um, I don't know that I could give you, like, in one sentence what my calling or higher purpose is. At one point, I thought I had it figured out. And then again, God just like humbles me every time, like, girl, you don't know what's up. So I feel like for me, really, it's just there's a verse in Matthew that says, you have to be that beacon of light. And I'm not, I definitely wouldn't consider myself like this constant light that's shining for other people. Because I have my moments and I can shut down. I think over the years, I've become very introverted. But I do find that the challenges we've gone through, either individually, as a family, as a marriage, with my children, could shine some light to someone else. And right now, that is my lane, if you will, is to really air some of our mistakes so others can connect and know what could be a next step, what is possible. And their solution may not be ours, not by a landslide, right? It could be something completely different, but just to know someone's come out of a situation that you're currently in, I feel shines some kind of light, right? That says like, we're in this dark path where we're lost, but there's a lighthouse and they might have an answer, or they might just at least let me know there's other people who are lost too, and there's a way out. I think that alone, giving that kind of hope is really valuable to someone who doesn't have any, you
Mhm.
know?
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And you know what? I feel like what you said, that you don't really know if what you do is like shining the light for everybody. But the thing is that you're just one person, right? So
Mhm.
you're going to be that light in the vicinity of where you roam. And you're not going to
Mhm.
be for everybody, but there are going to be so many people that are going to need what you have to offer. And at the end of the day, our higher purpose is just to serve. That's
Mhm.
it. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what space you're in. It's just that you're doing this because you were called to help people in areas that you struggled in, and you may not like be completely over it, right? Because I feel like when we reach a certain level, Asta, my guest, my very first guest, said this the other day. She said, new levels create new devils, right?
Mhm.
So there's always going to be like
Something else.
something, an opposition that we're going to face, and that tension always creates breakthrough, right? Like we're never going to grow if we don't experience adversity or some type of challenge. And even when we're going through a really tough experience, that allows us to look at the higher perspective of not necessarily why is this happening to me, but what can I learn from this experience that can not only help me grow but also help another person
Mhm.
overcome.
Amen. Yes. Our coach recently said that too. He goes, we're on this journey of self development, Becky, and there's no finish line. There just isn't. Sometimes we think like I'll arrive here, but when you do that, like you've gone through so much that there's another level for you to reach now and teach, and then another one, and another. It's just like never ending. That's why I said, can you imagine the conversations we'll have in our 60s? Because if we're blessed enough to get there, we're going to grow so much more than where we are now. Like we're just at the tip of the iceberg. But he recently said, like, you never lose. You only lose if you don't take a lesson from the loss. There's a
Mm,
lesson in everything. And if we take the time to see it, to own it, to course correct, like it's not a loss. It's not, how could it be? Right? Like the lessons are so much valuable than just like flying straight through and winning to the top. It's just not, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, I'm a huge believer in that. And yeah, we're constantly striving for something else, right? Something bigger, a bigger light to shine, a bigger obstacle to tackle, and just um helping others along the way. That's what it's all about.
absolutely. You are so right. And I remember I've seen a lot of coaches too. I think that it's really important that if you are on that personal development journey, that you recognize that it's really important for you not to solely depend on yourself. Obviously, like,
Mhm.
connecting to source, whatever that may be to you. For me, God is my higher power, and I know that God, it uses me as a living vessel to be able to speak, the truth of where the experiences that I've gone through. Um, but also recognizing, I remember going to see a spiritual psychologist, and I remember we were having a conversation about um, arriving. And she's like, Rebecca, you know that you'll never arrive. So why is it that you put so much pressure on yourself to get to this place? When you get to this place, you're gonna aspire to have more or want more. And at that moment, it clicked for me. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, why am I so hard on myself when nobody ever really arrives? Like everybody's on a specific journey, and the journeys will take them through numerous like loopholes and, stops, and there's going to be little nuggets that you pick up along the way. But as long as you're being true to who you are, knowing that as long as you're here on earth, it's going to be never ending. And there's always going to be something else that you're going to want to achieve. So why not allow yourself to be open about your journey, through your journey, and just embracing everything that is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Embracing
And that's that
everything.
staying in your lane, right? Because if we start like peeking over, like comparison is the thief of joy. We're going to be like, I should have been there, or they did it. How come it's easy for them? But we never know what goes on in between those pictures on Instagram, right? Like from one happy moment to another, there's shit that hits the fan. And I'm just going to say it because that's how it is. That's how life is. Nobody snaps a shot of those ugly moments, of those depressing moments, the struggles. Like nobody really captures that and airs it. It's like, oh, we made it here. Oh, we did this. Oh, we did that. And if we believe it, we're just gonna start doubting ourselves. Like we don't need any more of that, right? Like we've got the enemy whispering in one ear already. We don't need the outside world also chiming in on what's possible for us. So stay in your lane, you know what I mean? Like just keep going and focus on what's in front of you, because it'll do wonders once you learn to tune other things out.
Oh, absolutely. Well, then that goes into my next question. What practices do you implement to stay grounded and divinely connected to yourself to filter out all of that noise?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm a believer. I found God, and I really I have a great mentor that I mentioned earlier, and she and I work together on this workbook called Flourish. It's a Bible study for women, and every week it's like something else, and it goes through these beautiful chapters of like identity. What does it mean? Who am I? We're talking about fulfilling your purpose. What does that look like in God's eyes? And picking apart the book of Ephesians, the book of Romans, what the Psalms say. And just like sometimes we think, I know I used to think like the Bible was this ancient book. I don't understand it. The language is beyond me. It's just not for me. It's not relevant. But when we look at it, it's so incredibly relevant if we take the time to understand it and link up with people who can give you that perspective, to open your mind to another possibility. So for me, I do read the Bible. I have someone that I learn that with, and then also, like I mentioned, just books that are feeding my mind to currently build my belief system up, coupled with a coach. You said we can't do it alone. It's true, we can't. Like I'm a coach, but I have a coach. We've hired a coach because for me to get here, I can't keep doing the same things I've been doing if I'm not reaching up for something more, right? And to up level your thinking, you have to surround yourself with someone else who can give you that hand. So it's like a combination of things that really do. And my coach is also a Christian, so his methods and philosophies just align with our growth, and that keeps me grounded. So it has to make sense for you. This makes sense for me. It's like a multi-pronged effect, but it all goes back to God and what he says about me and what he says about our work. And that's like my those guys at the airport that are like showing you which way to go, like that. Those are my bumpers. That's where I know I feel grounded. It's a feeling. It's not just like a saying when I'm connected to these sources that I have.
Mm, that's so good. And I'm glad that you said that it's not just one thing, it's a
Hmm.
combination because
Hmm.
oftentimes we can say, oh, meditate, oh, do yoga, oh, eat, but no, it's a lifestyle, and it's something that we incorporate every single day in order for us to continue, right? It's a commitment to ourselves. It's a continuation of growth, and every day you're experiencing new experiences if you're allowing yourself to live in flow. And so, like I
Hmm.
was telling you before I pressed record, that I was experiencing a lot of energies that I had to really work through. So I did some journaling, I meditated, I drink some tea, and I really started to level out my thoughts, right? Because oftentimes we create stuff in our minds that is not even real. Like we allow
Mm,
ourselves to overthink, we allow ourselves to overdo, and really just simplifying the things that we do on a day-to-day basis of just like, just allow yourself to be for a little bit. Allow yourself
yes.
to not think anything at all. Don't let your mind go haywire, because your mind is literally such a powerful tool that is creating things as you go. So I'm so happy that you said that, because
Yeah.
it is a combination of lifestyle choices that we make every single day to keep ourselves grounded and more balanced.
Mhm.
What words of wisdom would you give to those seeking a deeper understanding of themselves?
Mm. I would say, honestly, what you said encapsulates a lot of that. So less is best. I think even leaving your phone in another room for a day and just sitting with your thoughts, as uncomfortable as it is, can start that trajectory of like, what am I fighting? What am I avoiding? What don't I want to face? And it's one of those things that when you're ready, it will reveal itself. And then you're left with like, okay, what can I do about it? But first you have to know what it is. You have to take inventory, right? One of my friends says you have to feel it to heal it. And if we're just ignoring it and keeping it in the closet and just like, I'll deal with it another time, that lesson will become louder. I am speaking from experience. It'll become louder and noisier. And at some point, it will be so in your face that you can't even grasp how to get through it. So if it's in your mind now, if it's in the back of your mind, um, again, we don't need extra opinions outside. Every time we open our phone and go on a social source, there's every line that we read, every picture we see is an opinion that's drowning out our own thoughts. So I would say turn off your phone, put it somewhere else where you can't access it, because if it's there, right, like our willpower is weak, we're just going to reach for it. And then just sit with your thoughts, take out a pen and paper even, and just like start writing. You'd be surprised what can come out, that's waiting to come out if we just allow it without judgment to look at us back on paper. So that would be my suggestion, somewhere where to start. And then once you have that, um, someone out there is going through the same thing. There could be a book, a podcast, a video like this on Rebecca's page that could help you make that connection for that next step. So don't expect like immediate results. Just know it's a step at a time. It all begins with awareness for me. And then after that, just like a beacon of hope somewhere that you can get through what you're going through. And you can. We're a resilient species, right? If we want to, we will.
Absolutely. And I've learned too that everything is cyclical. You said that earlier, that everything comes full circle, right? So we may not be understanding of our situation through the experience that we're going through at that moment. But if we allow ourselves to embrace what we're going through, even though as much as it hurts, to look back at it after we've gone through it and recognize, like, oh my gosh, there was definitely a reason for that season. And it
Mhm.
was so important and so relevant for my life to get on this new trajectory, because it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, that is so good, Daisy. One last question before we wrap this up. What
Yeah.
was your biggest aha moment in 2020?
Ooh, biggest aha moment. This is gonna sound strange, but that I'm strong enough, Becky. I had with Soline, my oldest, who's 6, I had a very awful delivery. Like my pregnancy was great. Um, and when it came time to deliver, it was like the longest thing I've ever gone through. It was so painful. It ended up being an emergency C-section. I didn't think Took him off to the NICU. I'd never had surgery before in my life. It was just like so much, everything I wanted to experience that we planned for, we took classes for, we didn't get to have. And that's like your first experience, and you're just like, it's traumatizing. That's another area that I decided to dive in for women, was like after birth processing, because now you have a baby and you can't even think for yourself like what just happened. um so that was that. with this one, although he was born in the middle of a pandemic, he's now 9 months old. He was born on April 12th, which was Easter Sunday. I had an unmedicated natural birth. And there were many times where I thought, I'm going to die. Like, there's no way this is humanly possible. I can't do this. But I did it. And at the end, when I had him in my arms, I just kept saying, we did it. I can't believe we did it. And I just had no idea that I could be capable of that, or what that would look like. But going through it was crazy. It was just so crazy that I did it. And my husband was there, thank God. My doula was there. I couldn't have done it without each of them. But yeah, I found so much strength in myself that I didn't even know I had as a woman, as a mother, and I'm really proud of that moment. So I found strength in 2020.
Oh my gosh, Daisy, you are literally like the epitome of strength. And
I still
seriously,
can't believe it when I say it out loud, like that I had him just like unmedicated and just like, all right, here we go. I mean, like so many women for thousands of years have done this. We're sometimes made to believe like it's just not possible. There's no way. You have to surrender to the meds, we don't have a lot of choices during those panicked moments of newness, and I did it, Becky. So crazy.
it's so funny because I went to Guatemala, well, twice. So I did 2018 and 2019, and both trips that I did, it's in Eastern Guatemala. A lot of people don't know this, but there's a lot of impoverished souls that live in that area, and it's out in the mountains. Like you wouldn't even know that these houses were there unless you know they're there. But I remember one of the housing projects that we went and did, I walked into one of the huts and I talked to one of the grandmothers, and she had mentioned that she birthed all of the children. And I mean, over there, you've been to Africa, so you know that in the conditions that these people live in, they really don't have anything. In fact, plant medicine is what they use. They actually make it themselves, whatever they find
Mm-hmm.
in wherever they are, right? In their
Yeah.
villages. And I asked myself, I'm like, because I've been going through these self-healing years and without doing, Western medicine. And I recognize that, it is possible. But I'm like, how do these women in this generation still do this in these parts of the world? And in America, it's so different. The process is so different. And yet I feel like there's a lot more dis-ease here because we
Mm-hmm.
depend on pharmaceuticals and all of that, like the Western way of doing things that oftentimes is not natural for the body. And the woman's
Yeah.
body is designed so perfectly. I mean, you can
Mm.
birth a child, for crying out loud.
You can make a human heart within your womb, like Becky. And again, if I hadn't gone through the loss, I wouldn't have like understood the depth of the miracle of life that is within us, right? And I know that sounds so like crazy deep, but that's the only way I could explain it. For some reason, we've been conditioned to think we need doctors. I mean, we do for certain things, absolutely. But the woman's body has been made to believe that like you need help to do this. Like
Yeah.
I'm a doctor, I've got my white coat. You need my medicine and you need my tools because you probably don't know what you're doing. And we believe the lie. We do. It's just, I know I did with my first one. I wish I didn't. I wish I had more control. I wish I had more knowledge to speak up and listen to my body, but I didn't. And how is it that these women in Guatemala are like birthing probably 12 kids, right? Like just one after another. And I can't have one, like, you know what I mean? It's just, it goes back to like, what are we feeding ourselves? What are we believing? And it's tough for new moms. It really is on lots of levels. But I think this recent experience just taught me like, man, we really do know what's up. We do if we just trust and Yeah, if we just trust. So,
Yeah, trust and you really listen to your own inner guidance because we can
oh yeah.
be, I mean, we filter through millions of thoughts a day, right? And
Yeah.
so it's kind of sometimes hard, especially if you don't take the time to ground yourself. And I know that I worked in industries where there was so much noise. There was
Hmm.
so much noise, and you know, consumerism was so prominent. It actually is in our society. So with consumerism, it's not just like the consumption of clothing and shoes, but it really is the consumption of belief systems that are not
Hmm.
right. And our systems in America are a little bit effed up, I want to say.
They
Where
are.
they really are. And you have to go against the grain to really find your own truth and recognize that oftentimes what stuff is like the stuff that is fed to us, it really is just a business, right?
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
business that work. There's three major industries that work together in order for it or them to keep our society sick.
Yeah.
And you are a prime example of, you know, allowing yourself to trust. And maybe you were put in a situation where you had no choice but to trust in yourself because of what was going on in the world. But you
Hmm.
recognize that even through the midst of chaos, you can find so much peace and clarity, and recognize that you can even birth a child naturally and everything is good.
Hmm. Yes. 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 And yes. You're right. And you know what? If you decide, whoever's watching this, to go down that path and like discover for yourself your truth, like you're going to be met with opposition. It just is, because we're just easier fed than, it's easier to feed us something than for you to rediscover it on your own. It just is. I don't know, right? How else to say that, but you'll be met with opposition, and just like do your research. Just even like how the school system's set up, how the hospital system's set up, just like dive a little deeper, find a nonpartisan party to just better understand the history and the trajectory of where things are going, and make your own choice, your own educated choice, and follow that gut instinct, because there's truth there. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh
yeah.
my God, Daisy, you are so wonderful. And I'm really grateful and honored that you were able to be a part of this conversation. These amazing conversations that are definitely opening up minds. And like I said earlier, that this is a collective conversation of different people, different walks of life, different life experiences, perspective, philosophies, belief systems. But at the end of the day, really, we are all one body, and we can come together and have these conversations so that we can impact each other's lives and get ourselves individually aligned with our higher purpose, whatever that may be to you, because everybody's higher purpose is different. But at the end of the day, we're all here to serve one another, to be a light, to be an inspiration, to be a positive influence, right? To do the right thing and to do something that is bigger than ourselves. And
Hmm.
so this is what Culture Talks is all about. I'm so grateful that you had the opportunity to join us, wherever you are, wherever you may find yourself today, that this conversation can touch your life in a way that you never imagined possible. And thank you so much for every person who is going to join this channel moving forward. We send you so many blessings and prayers your way. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Daisy, and have an amazing and abundant filled day and year. Thank you, everyone.